Hey everyone, and welcome to The Index, brought to you by The Graph, where we engage in conversations with visionary entrepreneurs building the next wave of the internet. Our mission is driven by the belief that people and their stories are worth knowing. We aim to share these stories so that you can understand why they are here pushing for a better future. Today, I'm excited to welcome artist Robbie Shilstone, a Los Angeles-based animator, director, and filmmaker. His work showcases a variety of styles, themes, and techniques that align with each of his projects, and he pulls from abstraction, minimalism, music, and philosophy to create worlds for his characters to inhabit. He's about to launch his new project, Public, which we'll cover on the show, and I'm just super excited to have him here because your work is amazing, and I think what you're building is really, really cool. So thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
So, I told you this when we met last week that I have this like bucket list thing where I want to be a voice actor, like just like an extra or like a cameo on an animated film. And I was kind of like nerding out about the work that you do. But can you just share with everybody kind of your background, the kind of work, who you've worked for in the past, what your style is like just give people an idea who you are?
Yeah, I mean, forever and always, the best way to really explain something is just to show people. But in this case, my work tends to lean in the more minimal and modernist angle. I'm an animator and filmmaker, like you said. It's kind of, I like to think that that's the closest that, what my imagination looks like is animated, it's alive. So, yeah, I think to give a sense of my background, I come from a traditional illustration background. I went to art school to learn illustration, design, anatomy, drawing classes, all of the above. And I knew pretty much from the beginning that I wanted to get into animation, but the tools are not easily accessible to someone who's maybe an amateur or just starting out. So as time went on, I kind of taught myself, gathered kind of the resources and tools, and yeah, just like I figured there's no better way than just diving in and kind of really throwing yourself at the practice. So
Well,
yeah,
for I totally hear you on like needing to be able to see the work, and we'll have this in the show notes too. But maybe can you give people your Instagram handle? Like if you're listening to this, just
yeah,
go
sure.
to Instagram and here's your handle so they can go
Yeah,
check it out.
it's my last name, Shilstone_arts. It's the best place. That's kind of the primary portfolio, if you want to call
All
it
right.
that.
So SHILSTONE_arts on Instagram. I loved your work. I think it's really cool, and you have these like paintings that have this AR, or the drawings that have this AR component too, where you can like take the iPhone app out and hold it in front of the painting, and these are for sale on your website, but um, actually see it's like a picture of a jazz musician playing various instruments. Right, there's three of them,
Yeah,
and when you overlay the VR app, it like plays the music, which I thought was super cool. Cool. Like I consider Web3 actually like crypto, blockchain stuff, AR, VR, and AI. It's like all of those things.
yeah, all
Just
under
like
the umbrella.
yeah. And so I think like it's interesting to me. You touch you kind of are dabbling in everything there with your art. But like, so what are you doing? Tell me about Public, and like, how did you, I guess before that, how did you get into Web3? Like you're an artist, an animator,
Sure.
you've worked for some pretty big name brands like Disney. Like, how did you go from that to Web3 stuff?
Yeah, so I had been working, freelance for the past, I think it's like 5, maybe 6 years now. Haven't had a full time job for quite a bit, which is, ideal. Um, and I had this really great chance to kind of work with some of the larger institutions, including MoMA and Apple. And I think I always knew that my primary goal was filmmaking and storytelling. I think it's just what I naturally gravitate towards. And so, I have been constantly looking for different ways and means of pursuing that. And I'm not one for really waiting for permission for people to tell me I can start doing something, particularly like an idea that I need to see like fleshed out. And so crowdsourcing had always been this like really interesting idea to me, but it never really felt serious enough to make a career on. It always felt very, I don't know, it pieced together. It didn't feel like a serious investment in a project. And so I, naturally kind of heard about the Beeple drop back in 2021 and his landmark sale that kind of like took over the public news cycle for a while. And my manager at the time was like, "Hey, I think you're the ideal candidate for this space. Like, it's a place where creatives can kind of like use their fandom as well as also just like be paid for their work, which at that time in a digital landscape had never been even on the table. You're talking about people just putting up things for hopefully social engagement, which then might lead to a financial opportunity. But that was an unprecedented moment for the digital art world. So I heard about that. And we kind of made a wallet together. We were making an Ethereum wallet. We were kind of fast tracked on the super rare. And we actually did our very first piece was a one-of-one collab with Method Man from Wu-Tang. And so it was kind of a sweet way to just jump into the space. They contacted us, saw our work, and really liked it. So yeah, it was kind of a haphazard way of getting into the space. And I think most people can attest to being like, your first steps into Web3 might be a little chaotic, a little, you have to kind of fish through all the scams and the people that are just like DMing you or whatever, or tagging you, and you're like, what the hell is this place? But slowly but surely built this really great community here that has been, particularly on Solana, that has been such a great, way for us to just kind of grow together in this kind of bizarre ecosystem.
Amazing. And so Method Man just like DM'd you? Like, how did that happen? How did they reach out to you?
Yeah, it was actually like pieced together through a handful of other people. Some people had the rights to a song that was unreleased, that was made during the story goes, a producer by the name of J. Ralph, he had met Method Man back at in Brooklyn back in early 90s at a music production studio. And he in a hallway, he whipped out a boombox and cassette tapes, and he essentially played him a track. And there's a video of Method Man freestyling on top of the boombox, cassette tapes. So they wanted to recreate that in a fine art sense 25 years later. And that's the name of the piece. So it's kind of like this abstracted, hip hop version of that moment. And so, yeah, they just reached out and kind of coordinated the whole thing. It took a little bit to get it over the finish line because none of us knew pretty much anything about Web3 at the time other than, hey, let's put something up and see what happens. And so it sold for a pretty substantial amount. And so at that point I was like, okay, I think we're here to hang out and see what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. I want to read, if you're okay with it, I'd like to read through the first slide 2, your thesis on Publique, this new project that you've got going on. Because I think the writing is really compelling. So Publique is a character-led animated universe set in a bustling mid-century metropolis. It is Publique's belief that everyone is unique with a story worth telling. While more modern characters exist in this world, it is a fondness of the past that will breathe throughout everything related to Publique. Through short films and animated vignettes, we glimpse into the everyday lives of every citizen. Each hand-drawn character will be a collectible cast member of this living, breathing world. Collectors will gain access to the animation production process, contribute to story ideas, and develop these characters alongside the creator. The gradual release of characters will support film development with the ultimate goal of screening at film festivals, pitching to streaming networks, securing a show deal, and growing the IP. Number one, that's a great thesis. And you heard at the beginning of the show, my whole tagline for the index is we believe people are worth knowing. And so it really resonates for me what you're trying to do. And it's just so thoughtful. I just wonder, where did the inspiration for this come from? Where's the inspiration drawn from?
Yeah. When I saw that in your kind of description of the podcast, I was like, okay, we're aligned on the kind of thesis there. The idea again came from storytelling and film making and fundraising. I think you know, I guess I should touch on off leash a little bit because that it was kind of our proof of concept a little bit, and then I can delve into where this concept really came from. So, Off Leash was a film that I fundraised on Solana just over a year ago. We put all the characters in the film up for sale. It's a film about dogs, so 9 dogs went up for sale, and it was over a 3-week period. And we said whichever one of these characters sells for the most and is auctioned off for the most will become the protagonist of the film. And that kind of kept me as a storyteller, on my toes and kind of needing to be improvisational and willing to practice that philosophy of saying I could put the spotlight on any of these characters and I have something to say about each of them. And now when you see the final result, which the poodle ended up being the protagonist, her name's Isabella. The collector got to name them. They got a little dog tag with their name on it as an airdrop. It was fun. But when, if you were to look at the full cast, there's a wide variety of different characters. Like there's a pug who is like super derpy and like really like you would never think to be a protagonist in a film. They were always the comic relief. And so I found that exercising that and being open enough for that was something that stimulated me, just got me excited to think, oh, what would the film actually be like with any of these guys? So that was kind of the initial idea. And now Off Leash was actually our plan B of all things. So we had an entire separate film and all the artwork and the actual like pieces to auction off were ready to go. And I'm not going to divulge what that film necessarily about, but we were planning on selling essentially vignettes that were like kind of like little animated scenes that would be kind of referencing what the film's about, as well as kind of a seasonal like interpretation of the city itself, and then background characters. And then as time went on, we were like, man, these background characters, like that is the whole thing. Like everyone is a background character in someone else's story. And that's kind of how we like drifted over from being like, no, it's like, we're going to do one film at a time and like really focus in on that, to then saying, no, let's scrap that. The films shouldn't necessarily be the first thing that we're leading with. We should lead with the characters because that's what people care about. And and then through that process, we really like, it's been, now coming on 2 years of really fleshing this idea out and really like just honing it, creating all of the characters. And yeah, now we're pretty deep into it and excited to, really practice what we preach and put something out there.
I mean, I know that like the industry is paying attention. Your industry is paying attention to this now, but I still feel like it's so early. But if you look at what you're doing and what like Kalanosaurus has done, it's really turned the whole model of creation of these kinds of animated films and games and products on its head. The normal way to do business is like pitch a production company, get a bunch of money, then like make the film, right? And this is like, we're going to develop the characters with the fans and like let the market kind of help tell us what thing is going to resonate the most. Like I'm really interested to see where this lands in a couple of years, where like these characters that you're developing initially through like the sales, the auctions, and then through the vignette development and like this like iterative process, where is it going to go? Like what thing is going to be the most popular, and will that have a meaningful impact on the longevity of the brand you're building around it? Right. Like I kind of, I mean, look, in startups it's customer discovery, right? Like you go out and you like have a idea for a startup. And so you talk to your customers, and this is literally the best kind of customer discovery. You're literally selling them the content before you've actually made the film or the game or whatever it is. I mean, it's really cool to watch.
But the difference here is that, compared to a lot of projects in Web3, which granted, there are a lot of really great ones, particularly love Kalanosaurus. There are some good friends of mine on that team. But, what was really important for us is to provide a proof of concept prior to launching a big project like this, which is why we really wanted to do the Off-Leash film, was to say, we can deliver the goods. We have delivered the goods. We've already done this on a smaller scale. Now let's like take it more seriously. And I feel like there's a lot of projects currently that don't really like, they launch just a generative collection or whatever it might be, and it becomes a huge success. And then they are like trying to figure out what to do with all these funds. And for me, I really wanted to make sure that the goal was always super clear and with the path of exactly what it is we were trying to do. So yeah, that it is.
And so people can go watch this movie. Like the first film is out there.
Yep.
Where
it's on YouTube. It's just on YouTube. Search Off Leash short film, and yeah, you'll recognize the art style. It's already in a film festival in Istanbul, and so it's making the rounds some more. We're waiting to hear back from a few dozen more. So we have a lot of submissions out there. This stuff always takes a long time to get over the finish line, though.
That's very cool. And so, but I think just continuing to pull on that thread, you're not doing a generative drop with this project. You're going to do one of ones. Like, can you talk about that? Like the character development. And I mean, I was reading through the deck and I was like, dude, this is a lot of work. Like, are you the only animator, or do you have other people helping you, or is it just you?
So far, this entire thing is just me. And
that is an insane amount of work. Okay. So for so people understand, like, tell them more about that. And then like what actually goes into the process of each animation.
Yeah. So hand-drawn animation is exactly what it sounds like. It's sitting still and drawing frame by frame in order to, create the illusion of life. And so, generally speaking, when we watch any video, it's shot at between 24 to 30 frames per second. And for me, that's obviously a tremendous amount of effort to animate that and draw that many frames per second. So I animate on twos, which means 12 frames per second, essentially. So yeah, every time you look at a frame of my animation, a still frame, that's one of 12 that would, have to be made per frame. So it's quite a laborious process. And, I've been able to streamline my process quite a bit over the years and really, hone in on how to produce it in a way that's a little more favorable to my time and schedule. But you're still in the weeds, scrolling through frames. So yeah, it's quite a laborious process. And, as far as the full production, it's like you design the characters, you storyboard, the actual like beat by beat. You time that out to music. In Off Leash's case, we, commissioned a composer and performers to produce the score of the film, which is you can listen to on Spotify now. There's just like it's a full production process. Animation's a little different than, say, video in the sense that you shoot footage and then you edit it down when it comes to live action. But in animation, you pretty much edit the entire film before you even start, animating itself. Just because there's no extra footage. You don't you have to make every single bit of it. So it's a labor of love at the end of the day. And, that's kind of the philosophy of wanting to do one of ones as opposed to, say, generative collections.
So there's 1,000, you're making 1,000 characters. Like, I mean, one
at least 1,000. Yeah.
And then you're auctioning them off. Are you doing 12 frames per 1,000 characters? Are they each character going to be animated?
Oh yeah, they're all going to be animated.
Yeah, so it's 12,000 really.
Yeah, 12,000 drawings.
12,000. Yeah,
at least 1,000 is kind of a rough, point on the horizon. But I don't know. I don't see any reason why this should stop. I just feel like if you think about 1,000 people, like over 1,000 people, guaranteed, right? It's like, and they're all individuals. Like 1,000 kind of feels small to me, frankly, as far as like the variety of people in this world and different stories that you could tell. So, that is a benchmark that I'm wanting to like hit as at least when we're, trying to communicate about it. But it's definitely an ambitious scale, but we're planning on rolling it out slowly over a really long period of time. It's not something where it's like we're dropping 1,000 at once.
What's that going to look like? Like, what's really long, and how is it going to get rolled out? How are people going to get them?
So we're really like with the character collection in particular, we want to make sure that there is a moment to highlight each character. And so currently our plan right now is to release one a week. indefinitely until the collection's complete. Now, I think there will be opportunities to do batch drops or theme drops. So, for instance, if all of the fine dining cooks were to drop at once, and that kind of fleshes out like that little pocket of storytelling and location based, character collection that within it. So you can kind of do like different versions of it. So it's not only one a week, but we want to like provide that cadence so that people know and can expect every single week when you return at this time, you will see a new character that's in the collection. And that's like a moment of entertainment that kind of takes your eye off of the floor price of a collection and just makes it about the fun, the storytelling, and there is an entry point, every week. It's not just like, you can get in if the market's at a low point or if it's at a high point, that there's just like, it's more sustainable in a long term. And, I've been able to grow my Instagram account over quite a long period of time without any gimmicks or tricks. Like it's just been organic. And because of that, it has, flourished into like one of the most, fascinating communities on Instagram, I think, as far as just the type of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you have like 400,000 followers on Instagram who already, this is another, like, you've got great market validation. Like you've got this big community of people who love your work already. And this is like the next level in the funnel, right? It's like there's where they can like really engage and really like get ownership in some of the content that you're creating. I mean, it's not, I have not seen an experiment quite like this yet.
Yeah.
The slow drip, the actual creation process, it's very cool.
And they're all storytellers. If you go through the comment section of Instagram, you'll see paragraphs of people like going into detail about some of these characters, which are, 12-second animations of characters doing a number of different things. But
just spontaneously, just doing that on their own?
All I prompt, every single post, pretty much I prompt saying, what's their name? Or if it's a building or a restaurant, or this week I posted a sailboat and I said, what's the sailboat's name? And people write these crazy backstories for it. And I love it because it's like, for me, art is a reflection of each of us. Like that's where you find real values. You see yourself in it and are able to pull something from it that, no one else would. And so whenever you get that chance to, see people's interpretations of this, it's a reflection of themselves. Some people will be like, that's my dad, and he just passed away 3 years ago. And like, I miss him every day. And I'm like, holy shit, like this is awesome. Like not because just because it's beautiful.
Yeah. You impacted that person. You inspired them in some way and had an impact on them. And that was cathartic in that case, which is,
and that's emotional value.
Yeah. And I mean, this is another thing that I want to read actually from your deck, if you don't mind, is, just at the last slide, it's a word from Shillstone.
Sure.
I believe Publique can be a force for good in the world. Outside of just being entertainment, Publique can provide intellectual, emotional, and financial value to its fans. By making the brand embody growth, human connection, and simplicity, I know Publique can stand the test of time. And I mean, this is like the it's really powerful what you're doing. And I think, it's it goes back to the why. Like, you believe these stories are important, and the people that are telling them are actually the fans. They're the ones like helping create and tell the story. And there's just something really meaningful there. And I'm thinking about, you mentioned like you're going to roll out these 1,000-ish initial ones like once a week with like potentially some bulk drops, which sounds like a handful is bulk, like 5, 10 maybe at once.
Max 5 probably.
It just strikes me that there's just like, it's gonna be basically forever, right? Like, and it could be, and you've seen like some timeless classics out there that have like 15 seasons, and this is like the beginning of one of those things, but it's a totally different medium. Isn't the right word. But it is a different delivery, right? It's a very different delivery of something like this. It's just, it's really intriguing.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, the why is really important, because that's going to keep you invested in it for the long haul, and, money's not really all that important to me outside of making ends meet and being able to pursue the things that I want. Obviously more is better in certain instances. But like, that has never been I didn't get into animation to make money. Let's put it like that. So I'm, keen on making sure that this has like real sticking value for people and becomes part of their lives in a way. It's not just something that distracts you from, your everyday life, but it's something that hopefully helps you cope with life in a way. And really,
Yeah.
like, there's just a lot of noise in the world right now. And I think people, particularly on the internet, are really like starved of soulful things that are like a piece of calm and really like that slow them down for a moment. And I feel like that's something that the internet certainly doesn't incentivize, but clearly there's a demand for it to some degree.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, yeah, you keep talking about like standing this day of time, right? Like in lasting forever and having this like long-term meaningful impact. And that resonates with me throughout the entire presentation that you have about this project. And I don't know, it's just inspiring. It'll be really cool to see it happen.
Yeah.
So we're getting towards the top of the show here, and I always ask kind of the same question of people. But what have I not asked you that I should have asked?
Why Web3? Maybe like
Yeah,
why not pursue like a Disney deal or whomever?
great question.
Yeah, and for me, it's been like it's the reason why I do it to begin with is to connect as closely with the fans as possible. Um, I believe that content is king, like, and people will follow it wherever, like, if they find content that they are particularly fond of, they will follow it wherever it goes. Um, and, we're in the middle of a writer strike, now an actor strike. Um, there's like a clear lack of value that's being associated with creators. And like I said previously, like I don't want to wait for permission from someone else. I know there are people out there that want to see what I want to produce, I'm gonna try and get to that as quickly as possible because the idea is here and now, and it needs to be made now. Um, and the bureaucratic hurdles of traditional media, to me, is just too slow in today's world. So I think that having a fan base that can really support and hopefully gain something from it as well. Not just the entertainment or like a Kickstarter, but like hopefully can be rewarded for being early to culture. Um, I think that to me is like a really interesting and unprecedented opportunity.
Wonderfully said. Yeah, and I think that that's like the why Web3 question is so important for people to hear, and it's one of the big reasons why I have this show is to help folks understand that. But that direct connection to the between creator and the consumer, the audience, is really important. And I think more and more creators are becoming aware of the fact that their core channel, their core place where they reach that audience is not theirs. Like they don't own that
Right.
audience.
Totally.
And the nature of having your fan have a wallet that's composable across an open permissionless blockchain that allows you to all of a sudden have that direct relationship. Like technologies may change, providers of interfaces to access the fans may change, but it's always there. The connection's always there. You can always find a way.
Yeah.
And that, but versus like, and that's the future. That's the future of the internet is that
It
you
has
have
to
this
be.
connection across platforms and they don't own it. You own it.
The amount of power that these
So
platforms have right now is just, over society as it is just hard to really wrap our heads around. So yeah, I couldn't agree more with that sentiment.
well, Robbie, thanks so much for being on the show. I wish you the best of luck with Publique. And if you're listening to this, please go check out his Instagram, shillstone_arts. And yeah, just follow along on the journey. This is a really, really interesting experiment happening kind of in real time over the next 6 months or so. And yeah, really look forward to seeing how you end up.
Yeah, appreciate it, Alex, and look forward to sharing everything with everyone along the way.
All right. Thanks.